Your backdrop's so much better than mine. I just had to clear all the crap off my desk. I'm like, nope, can't have a cherry Coke bottle there. Let's hide that. Oh.
I know. Well, to be fair, this is leaning against the back of my sofa, so it's not as pro as it looks.
Have you ever done? Hello, Paul. How are you? We're just comparing We're comparing backdrops. Vary's winning, by the way. I think. To be fair, I think you'd be okay with that if she's winning. The backdrops. Have you ever done the thing where you've been on a call and you've somehow knocked the backdrop over? Because I've done it when I had a webcam and I was chatting to, I think it's Courtney Gaines from Children of the Corn, and my webcam just fell off. So I had to very quickly mid-call, so that made me cringe.
Oh no, nightmare.
So have you ever knocked over your backdrop, or could this be a first?
Not yet. I'm sure it'll come, probably in the middle of a self-tape.
Yes. There is a reason I normally only do audio podcasts, but I'm trying to do video a little bit more. But you know, I'm used to just talking to people. You guys are used to hanging around with lots of people. So I've watched your film this morning. I finished it like an hour and a half ago. So it's still in my brain. I loved it. I wasn't sure what to expect. I mean, it's out now, isn't it? It's out today.
Yeah, it's out in the US as of today, and it's on Amazon in the US, and then in the UK it's sort of coming onto Apple TV, and then it'll slowly come out from there, as well as DVDs as well.
How exciting is that? So I'll start with Paul first. So what's it like on the day when your film is released? Because obviously you shot this a while ago, you know, months, weeks, whatever. So, but today everybody will be starting to see it. So is there any like routines or stuff you have for a release day / week?
Not really. I mean, yeah, we shot this April 2021, so that's just over 2 years ago. And it was finished, just over a year ago, because we had a big post-production schedule with all the VFX. But no, I mean, there's no real sort of, I think I'm going to go out for dinner tonight and just maybe raise a glass, to that. But that's about it, really. I think it's on to the next, and what else needs to be done. I mean, the kind of work's done, but it's, I think it's nice to mark the occasion. So that's what we're going to do, I think, yeah.
Are you the sort of filmmaker that ventures online into the deadly world of film Twitter to see what those so-called experts think of movies?
I'll be lying if I said I hadn't taken a look. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, isn't it, just to see whether the work that you made or the intention that you made translated. If someone says, oh, I really like the tone, or I like the fact that it was done this way, or the attention to detail in this area, or whatever it might be, if some people pick up on that. And, I've got kind of like a healthy outlook on the good and the bad, because, every film, is going to get mixed reviews to a degree. So I'm not really, if it doesn't, particularly, appeal to someone's taste, then I'm not, each to their own. I've got, I'm sure if you went on IMDb and looked up Shawshank Redemption, you'd find a couple of naysayers saying it was too long, it was too boring, it was just a load of talking heads, didn't like the ending, So, we can expect that.
Well, you look at Shawshank. How much money did that make at the cinema on release? Not a lot. So, But I think it's funny. I think one of my favorite, and I'm saying favorite in air quotes in a sarcastic tone, was one of the comments on the trailer for Fear the Invisible Man, and it was, "This isn't a sequel." It's like, no, it's not a sequel. No, and it's just like, part of me was laughing, part of me was also mad at the comment, but then I just ended up just shrugging my shoulders. It's like, no, it's not a sequel. If you actually open your eyes and look at anything, the poster, the trailer, it's not a sequel. Just come on, get away from franchises.
Yeah,
that's funny.
What about you, Vary? So opening, do you have any traditions, or are you gonna copy Paul's answer? Let's go have some lunch.
Yeah,
good answer, by the way.
It's nice to mark the occasion. I'm sort of quite glad that my family and friends are going to be watching it the second they can see it, so that's going to be quite nice, because obviously they've heard a lot about the ins and outs of getting it made, so the fact that they'll be able to actually go online and watch it and buy the DVD, that's quite a nice feeling. But yeah, I think we're just gonna raise a glass, go out for dinner, And yeah, get ready for the next one, really, which we're already talking about. So, yeah.
I have seen some stuff on you, which I'm not going to talk too much about that, but I've seen some on your up and coming projects, Paul, and that's interesting. It's similarly connected to this one, I think. That's like, wonder what Paul's take's going to be on that one. So that's quite good. I mean, I'm still mind blown that the original movie. I've not read the H.G. Wells book, so all of my knowledge about Invisible Man is from the film adaptations over the years. And 90 years ago, I'm guessing it was the original one. I guess it was the first one. 90 years ago that was done. That's insane. And I saw that recently again, and I'm still baffled as to how some of the shots are done. And I got that from watching Fear the Invisible Man as well. But obviously back then there was no computers, so I'm wondering, were there some? But I don't want to know. So even though it'd be very easy, how did you do this shot? I kind of don't. I don't want to know. I don't want to take the tricks away from the magicians.
Sure.
Okay.
So I'm not going to ask you any of how are these effects done. I could probably tell that there is a big fire scene in it, which Barry, you're involved in. I'm guessing that wasn't real flames, or you may not be here. But beyond that, I was just in I can't think of the word, engorged. I was into the storyline of the movie, and I was sitting watching it and thinking, I like what they've done with the characters, and they fleshed out the original movie and stuff. And then I looked at the plot synopsis of the actual original book, and you've gone back to the book more than you've remade the 1933 Invisible Man, and I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I read the book as soon as I kind of got the gig, as it were, and I'd seen the film before, but I went out and bought it again just to sort of revisit it. But I think, yeah, I mean, the script was written by a chap called Philip Day, and yeah, in the original book, it's Adeline the Adeline character is dead, and it's Reginald, the husband, that is in the house, and that's when Griffin comes along and stays with him. So Philip did a good job of just swapping that over to make it a little bit. So it's based on the novel, but it's just a little bit removed in regards that we've just changed the characters there, and then it opens it up to have like a possible kind of history between the Invisible Man and Adeline from, you know, when they were back at university. So that gives us like a nice sort of romantic subplot to the whole thing that wasn't there in the original book. But apart from that, I think we've tried to stay fairly kind of close to it as much as we could, really. You know, you don't want to make a complete copy, but you don't want to stray too far, because then what's the point in, you know, basing it on that book? So you kind of need to do your own little additions to it, but enough to keep the fans happy, but then offer them something new.
And not sort of make them think it's a sequel to the Elizabeth Moss movie, which
sure
will still blow my mind. So what's it like when you get the call or the email going, we'd like to do an Invisible? There's got to be a certain, that's a big, because it's a well-known project. It's obviously going to be effects heavy in one way or the other, be it practical or CG or something like that. So what goes through your mind when they're like, hey, Paul, we want you to do this?
Well, actually, the film came to me via Mhairi, really, because Mhairi had already been cast, and I'd worked with Mhairi on our web series Horizon, which was like a lot of VFX in that. So it was Mhairi that put me forward to like the execs, M&M Productions, to say, look, I think Paul would be a good fit for this. And then I met with them and they offered it to me, which was great. I mean, to be fair, it ticked all of my boxes. Like it really did. You know, I like genre, I like spectacle, and I like heart, and you kind of mix them all together and we have this film. I love the Victorian period. So it was just, you know, when I first read it, I was really excited, and I was actually praying that it wasn't shit. If I'm going to, you know, call it what it is, I was really saying, if someone's offered me this film, I hope the script's good, because if it's not, do I do it reluctantly because it's a nice opportunity, you know, it's an opportunity to do a film, but then the film's not very good, or do I say no? So when the script was good, I was very relieved, to be fair. It was bigger, and we had to scale it down because I knew what we can do visual effects wise and what we can't do. So a lot of it had to just be scaled right down to make it more achievable, really. But the essence of the original script that I got is still there.
Well, the good thing is it doesn't feel scaled down from a viewer's point of view. It doesn't feel like, and we've all seen films where we're like, oh, if only they had a bigger budget, they could do this, and they could. Oh, I see why they've done that because of this, that, and the other. It didn't look like it had been shrunk down. I mean, I don't know what the budget are. I've never understood the public, and by that I mean people who don't make movies. I've never understood their obsession with how much a film costs, and I never really need to know how much a film costs. But I suspect that what is on screen is far more than what the budget is, if I said that right. So I'm sure the budget was a lot smaller than people would probably guess it was.
Yeah, I think that was something we wanted to make sure didn't sort of prohibit us, though. We were like, we don't want it to look like a low budget independent. We want to give it everything so people don't know, or they think it was made for more money than it is. Like, we just didn't want to be held back by any of those financial issues that you do have with any level of filmmaking, but especially if you do independence. So I think that was sort of one of the key things for us. So we wanted to keep a certain amount of stuff in there, which was really, really difficult, especially for, you know, like the art team, props, the effects team. That was really hard. They really had their work cut out because of that. The costume team as well. So it was a lot of very ambitious people that managed to come together to pull it all off.
I mean, sort of fair praise to all the set designers and everything. The film and the locations looked amazing. Got to talk about the manor house. Where was that shot? And were the interiors the same as the exterior, or were these different places?
Yeah, it's the same interior and exterior. Basically, we found it up in Gloucester on a location database, and I was actually looking at another house, and that was my backup. And then we were getting really far down the road with the owner of the first house, and then he started talking money, and which in hindsight would have been nice to have got that information off him beforehand. And but yeah, it was about 5 times a day what we were looking to spend, and the communication stopped pretty quickly after that. And then so we went to the second location, which turned out to be great. I mean, it was a gorgeous house inside and out, perfect for what we were doing, just up the road from where we're based in Bristol. So it was just about 45 minutes away in Gloucester. And the couple who owned it were lovely, really nice, really accommodating, and it basically gave us free run of the place, really, and it was good, and it was a really good deal they offered us. And I wish I could live there.
It looks stunning. I wish I could live there. And I've only spent 90 minutes there. I mean, how long was the shooting period? How long did you guys spend there?
Was it 18?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually lived in the house during the shoot because it was during COVID. So myself, the head of costume and head of makeup, all of us actually lived in the property together. So I actually felt like a Victorian woman, because in the morning they would come up to my room and dress me and get me ready and then take me down. So I was really immersed in this role.
So some of these scenes where your staff are going, "I've brought you some breakfast," this could well have been them just bringing Mhairi breakfast rather than Adeline. Interesting. That's good. But it would also help with your character, wouldn't it? Living in the house. Like you said, it helped you feel like a Victorian sort of homeowner and stuff. So that would definitely have helped, I would have thought.
Yeah, I did. I left a light on. It was a very big house, so I'd leave a light on in the corner of my room because, you know, it's quite eerie and spooky when you suddenly all the crew go home and there's just 3 of you in this huge mansion house. So yeah, it was an experience. Especially
when you're shooting something about the Invisible Man, I would have thought that would probably, you're making a movie, but you never know. It is possible. So it was, and during the pandemic as well. I mean, that must have been tricky, and obviously added a lot of extra bits and pieces and stuff on. So. Yeah,
I mean, we had testing, as you do each day. You get tested, and then you have all sort of temperature checks and stuff, and then every 2 or 3 days you have a proper sort of swab test just to make sure. But we had no issues. But I mean, the big thing for us really, and it was Mike Riley, our producer, which basically said it's me and Mhairi really that if either of us get COVID, it's game over. Yeah. Like proper, stop production type thing, because we can't do anything about it. So yeah, we were lucky that we were really kind of cautious and we didn't get any cases or anything like that. But yeah, it was a sort of a troubling time really, and we were looking to shoot about a year before, and it just COVID obviously just pushed everything back, and people didn't know, the cost of the PPE and stuff was just adding to the budgets, and people, it's just making it really hard. And it was the insurance as well, that people couldn't get insurance for productions, because you could have 50% of the productions that the insurance company is insured shut down and need to be reshot or whatever. They'd go bust. So that was the big thing that was holding everyone back, was the insurance.
So it's a nice little sort of capture of April 2021, isn't it? At the beginning of.
Yeah.
So, because I've written my review up after I'd watched the film, so I've amended the article that I did originally. And one of the things that I pointed out is the film is called Fear the Invisible Man, and sort of the title character is the Invisible Man. But Mhairi, I felt that Adeline was the center stage of the film. And it's not to take anything away from Griffin, played by Mike and voiced by Mike, but a lot of the scenes that you've got, there's nobody there. There's just you reacting to nobody there. So that does put you pretty much center stage. Sorry, Mike, but you know what I mean. So what was that like, acting against nobody? What was the process there?
Do you know what, we there were so many different elements to each scene that we did. So on some scenes there was literally, I was acting to thin air and there was no one there. And then we had Joe Trigger, who's a lovely actor, and he was Mike's body double, and he would hide off screen and read the lines just so I had somebody else reading in the other dialogue. So that's how we did a lot of it, which was really challenging, because one of the things that Paul said to me is, look around, because you don't know where he is. So your eyes will be darting around trying to figure out from the sound, from speaking, about where he is in the room, which is so new as an actor on camera, because you're used to fixing on an eye line and staying there. So that was a whole different challenge. And then on some scenes where there's maybe an item floating, like he's maybe wearing a cloak or hat or carrying a prop, and you see that prop, that was Joe in a full green suit, face covered, everything, literally a lime green suit, doing the dialogue to me. And again, that had its own challenges, because it was incredibly funny when we first saw him in it. But he was a great sport, walking around in this lime green costume with whatever thing he had to hold that day. And so there was loads of different ways that we actually managed to do those scenes, but it was certainly challenging. It was sort of like doing an audition tape, but with the set and everything, just without the other actor. So that's how I sort of went around it. But I had to do it was a lot of my imagination doing the work. And as you said, like, there's a scene at the end of the film where there's fire and, there's gunshots and stuff like that. And of course, none of that was real. Mm. So again, that was just me in an empty room, kind of going, oh my God, like this, running around with Paul shouting past the camera going, this is happening to the left of you, and fire explosions on the right of you. I'm like jumping out the way at nothing. It must have looked really weird, but it seemed to work. So
you could literally take all your scenes from this movie, just put them in a long clip and go, there's my show reel, here's all the different things I can do. But that must have definitely been challenging, doing all these different styles of acting. So acting against somebody, right, there's nobody there, now there's a person in a green Kermit suit or whatever, that one. So how exhausted must you have been at the end of each day? I would think probably quite exhausted.
Yeah, I mean, we were shooting 8 scenes a day probably. And obviously they're not in order, so it'd be like, scene 13, scene 86, scene 48. So just keeping the order of the script in my head. So I learned all the dialogue before I even turned up to set. I learned the entire film by heart. It was just easier to learn the whole thing. So then I knew, that scene connects to this scene, and I know all the dialogue in that scene. So luckily, I had time to do a lot of prep, which really helped me. But then physically, you're wearing a really heavy costume. You've got the corset. All of that takes a lot of energy. So you have to really look after yourself. And it was boiling hot weather at one point as well, and I was in 15 layers of costume and a corset, running and all sorts of stuff. So it was a good workout.
I'm always impressed when an actor says that. So I just learned the whole thing. It's like sometimes people ask me what date of the month it is. I'm like, I don't know. Let me check my phone. I'll have a look. So to sort of say I just learned the whole script. Props to you, most definitely. I mean, as a director, how does that work for you, Paul? So you'll have a script with you, but you can look at it when Vary's on camera, I can't go in a minute. Let me just check that. Unless you go post-it notes like Marlon Brando used to do, but don't do that. So how do you? I'm guessing maybe you, or do you end up learning the whole script?
Well, as in, what do I do in my role? Yeah.
I mean, obviously I know what a director does, but with regards to the script, I mean, Vary said it was just easier for me to learn everything because you're going through this script again and again and again and doing your shot plans and all that sort of stuff. Do you find that you just end up knowing the whole script, or do you not need to?
No, you do. I think for this particular film, and for all films, really, you should, do as much prep as you can. And I think I remember watching an interview with Anthony Hopkins once about how he learns the script and how he does character. And he was saying that he reads the script about 150 times, or if not more, like 300 times. And he said the character kind of rises to the surface like it's a piece of film that's being developed. And when you read the script over and over, you can just know the tone of what that, scene 78, where we are. And I find it's quite useful just to put at the top anything of that scene, of that page, anything that's significant that's happened before it that you need to know. And it's just really easy then that you can just dive into that scene and go, Adeline feels this, Inspector Addy is feeling this, or he's suspicious, he's heavily suspicious by this point, or whatever. And just so you get that sense that you can then relay that to the actors as well and say, don't forget you're suspicious of her here, or if it's just where the scene is, perhaps it's being cut in between two other scenes that are very fast paced, that I'm planning to shoot fast camera moves or something. So just being aware that the scene in the middle would have to match that style. Otherwise, you're not going to realize it doesn't work until you get to the edit suite and you go, the camera's all locked off, where the scene before it was all handheld and flashy, and now it suddenly stops dead. So just being aware of that, of the overall thing, and I think that's the most important. But I was very impressed with Vary knowing the script because of the schedule being so ruthless. We would literally go, that 2 hours we've got to film scene 76. Well, now we've got 45 minutes, go. And the coverage of the photography would obviously be scaled down, but it's a real testament when an actor knows their lines. And believe me, I've worked on stuff where they don't. And it's like, that's your job, dude, to know the dialogue. And if we're stopping every 2 minutes or every 2 seconds, for them to go line, or they just, you could see them reaching for the line and you're like, you haven't learned this, haven't you? You haven't done the work. And it holds everyone up. And then it forces me to do something where I'm cutting around, or I'm getting more close-ups or more cutaways in order to be able to cut into their performance. And it can be really hard. So to have a big arc like Vary did in the movie, and us to sort of jump around was really a testament to her talent, really, because we couldn't have done the movie. Like Vary said, 8 scenes a day was just mental, and you would go, our DP Alex Metcalf was gold, where we would look at it and go, okay, so the first 2 scenes have to be their night, but we're shooting it as 9 a.m. so we're gonna have to black out the windows, etc. Then we've got a day scene. Then our other actor turns up at midday, and his first scene is night, so then we're blacking out the windows again. And that might just be because of schedule of when he or she was available. Nothing to do with kind of bad planning, and you just have to sort of work around all of that, and it can be just a juggle, really, just a juggle.
Well, you're both amazing jugglers, so and Alex and the rest of the team as well. So I wasn't sure what I'll watch a trailer, and then if I know I'm going to watch the film, then I don't tend to read anything about it or watch any further trailers. So I wasn't sure what to expect, and I loved The Invisible Man. I'm a huge fan of the original one, but I love the fact, and I put this in the review as well, it's a modern film. I did put it was 2023. I may have to go back and put filmed in 2021, but that's still a modern film. But it still keeps the classic feel to it. It still feels like it could be a film from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. It doesn't feel, there's not MTV editing in there, for example. It feels like it was shot classically. There's a chessboard in there. I absolutely adore whoever had, I don't know if the chessboard was in the book or whatever, but I noticed early on, I'm like, I love the fact that it's mid-game. At that one sort of moment when somebody's, when you're looking at the chessboard, Vary, and that says so much about the fact you're grieving for your husband. You don't want to touch his stuff. And that was pretty early on that I'd picked that one. And then obviously it becomes a little bit more talked about in the thing. But the chessboard mid-game, genius. Loved it.
Well, the style thing was something that we wanted to do. And I spoke to Alex about it, the cameraman, where I said I wanted that classic kind of Hollywood polish, slow, considered, old school Hollywood look and feel. So we had, nice, slow, sort of sophisticated dolly moves. We weren't flashing handheld. In fact, we never went handheld. Lots of, either locked off or a nice little slow move. Like, I really like the opening shot of Mhairi stood by the window when we see her, and we're just in her house and she's silhouetted, and it's just a really nice slow pushing where it says, it gives us the whole room plus the sort of the pace of her life, which is the pace of life back then. And I think we were just looking for that. I wasn't looking to do something flashy with lots of quick cuts and flashy edits and stuff. We wanted to do that kind of that old school feel, candlelit interiors, blue moonlight, considered camera, positions and things like that.
Misty churchyards.
Yeah.
The smoke coming out of the science beakers, all this sort of stuff just put big smiles on my face, because those are things that we, fans of classic movies are familiar with. So to see those touches in there, I loved the fact that there was it was during one of Griffin's flashbacks to his story, the bandages and the sunglasses. I'm like, yep, got it, loved it. So it's for sort of, again, it makes me sad for the person who went, this isn't a sequel to the Elizabeth Moss one. It's like, go back and watch other stuff. Please, treat yourself.
Yeah. I mean, we wanted to do that. We wanted to do that little nods to the old, the old movie and the book. And as much as we could put in there, we could, anything like that, the glasses and the beakers. And I like that. And you kind of look, when we were doing it, it's a lot of the scenes, you wouldn't think this. You'd think it's what scene is made up of the big dialogue or the big speeches or the whatever. But actually, it's the little detail shots of the beakers and the candles and the syringes and all those little things that just, the old, art department did a great job of all those little props and things like that, just to give it that kind of that feel, that texture of the time. And it's very easy to shoot the whole scene. Someone walks through the door, they say a line, he or she says a line, cut. But actually, if we can come off the chessboard or see the beakers, along the table at the beginning, and then we hear people talking, and then we cut to our actors, it just gives us a sense of the space a lot more. And we were really considerate about that. And we also, Alex and I had this thing which we would call close-up money, where we didn't want to shoot too many close-ups. And we would say, let's spend some of our close-up money today. So a lot of the shots were quite wider than normal, just to get in the background to give it that sense of the scale or the house and the paintings and the doorways. And then when it really mattered, which is probably about, 3 or 4, 5 sequences in the whole movie where it would come in quite tight just to emphasize something. But we didn't really want to go in too much, too tight. And I think that's, they say Hollywood is in the, the cinema is in the wide shot and TV's in the close up. So we just kind of said, well, let's pull back a bit wider. And Alex, the cameraman, was very, on board with all of that approach.
And also, just to build on what Paul said, we also wanted to build the world. That's one thing that was really important to us, where you get all the different locations and you get all the different props and all the locations, because again, that's a production value thing. And one thing we didn't want to do is, it's a low budget independent, which means there are really no props and no background setting or dressing. So that was something that was really important, that we actually got all of that in as many shots as we could, to show that the budget wasn't going to limit us on how we were going to make the film.
Because obviously you got the manor house, the fields, the trees, they're all things that would have existed back in 1897 anyway. So it's like you're solving half we don't have a budget to do XYZ by just filming in those places.
Yeah.
So that would definitely be a help, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And I think, like Mhairi said, actually, about building the world, I love that whole idea of world building, whether it's sci-fi or period or whatever. And there's a shot in there that I kind of really liked that we managed to get in. And there's a little nice addition where she's traveling to town to go in to see the mayor. and we have this horse and carriage shot, and I thought, oh, I'll put in this stone tablet saying Port Burdock 2 miles, and it just says travel, it says distance, the fact that her house might be over here and she has to travel, and in the distance we see the house, we see the town, and we know it's 2 miles away. And in addition to that, you've got this old stone tablet, which is a nod to the period, but it just gives the audience a sense of geography and the fact that there's this wider world out there. It's not just in her house. And I think if we tried to make, as you know, like Mhairi said, the secret really to kind of trying to make these things seem bigger than they are is locations. And it's quite, you know, the kind of the formula for low budget stuff is minimal cast, no effects, minimal locations, shoot a 1 location movie, and then you shoot it. But we kind of threw that out and kind of went, no, we'll have 400 VFX shots, 20 different locations. But it's about, to be fair, and I learned this on this picture, it's about how resourceful you can be. Like the guest house that Griffin is in at the beginning of the movie, and the landlord banging on the door and all that, that's a room in the manor house, because there was along the second floor of the manor at the back of towards the back, we didn't really use that. I think there's a bedroom we use, but there's a corridor, and there's a little annex off that corridor that looks is decorated completely different to the rest of the house. So it's like, well, that could be a corridor in the guest house. And then the room itself, the wallpaper was peeling, there's a load of books, and it was full of old furniture. So we took the furniture out, and that became Griffin's guest house, stuck a green screen out the window, and then so we could put the London outside. But this happened to be on the second floor of the manor house, so then the green screen is then on a scaffolding rig outside the window in order to get the green screen out. So, but we, you know, our production team were looking for a guest house location for like 3 or 4 weeks ago. We still haven't found this room. But not only is it trying to find the room, but also you have to find room in your schedule where your crew travel to that location, set up the kit, decorate, de-rig, and then go back to the manor house, which is basically a day, which we didn't have. But if we can find a way of shooting in the manor house, we literally walk down the corridor, put the camera down, and we could shoot. So it's about trying to make as many locations as you can to give it that world and hopefully give it that extra production value.
Yeah, because I think people who watch films, and that is, I love the pre-credit sequence, which very, very quickly made me realize I was in safe hands with the film, because we all get like that. If they make a sequel or a revision for something that we love, we're like, is it gonna impress me? Am I gonna go, oh no, what have they done? But that pre-credit sequence very, very quickly went, you'll be okay, you're all right, don't worry about it. And then the title comes up, and then we carry on with the rest of the film.
Yeah, and I mean, even that church at the opening, we kind of did fall on our feet, where we were talking to the owners of the manor house, and we said we're still trying to find a church. And obviously trying to find some location, you have to approach the owners and say, you know, can we film here? This is what we're doing. And again, you're then into transporting your crew, setting up nights, all that kind of stuff. And we said to the owners, we're trying to find this church, and she says, oh, we've got one.
Wow.
And the owners had the church on their property out the back, round by, on the other side of the bushes. So we could schedule shooting days at the church at the same time as the manor house, because it was all there, and it was a gorgeous church. I mean, it was untouched.
Yeah,
it's amazing. But
like of the period as well, weren't they? So all the gravestones were correct period and everything, so it was perfect. That's where we really, everything sort of just started coming together and aligning, didn't it? Once the ball started rolling, everything was just clicking into place very quickly.
And I can imagine during a pandemic it would be quite difficult to find locations anyway. It's like, do I really want, are you going to be breathing when you're in my house? Well, we may breathe. No. So that would have probably added yet another element of trickiness and juggling to your skill sets, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And then COVID was a real challenge on the days where we did have the extras as well, like on the Bath street scenes and the bank, and just making sure that everyone was safe. And we were really lucky; no one caught anything. So it was.
So it's a question for you, Mhairi. Do you miss Adeline? What was it like when you play a character and then you leave that character? Does part of her stay with you, or have you done that many films now where you're like, okay, put her in a box, keep her there if I need to?
I don't know if I've done that many. I'd like to do more. Just if anyone's looking. I think, yeah, she was a great character to play. She was really fun. She was really forward thinking. She was strong. I liked the fact that she was still sort of an elegant woman of that period, but there was something really strong and action hero about her as well. And so it was kind of fun playing those two things. So there's elements of her that I think when you're an actor and you're playing someone who's inspiring, it's quite nice to take those things from that person and try and put it into yourself. So I think that's when you get to play really good characters like that, it works the other way around. They almost help you to become a better person rather than anything else. But yeah, I do miss her. And I'm really glad I got to play her because she was a real dream role for me. I love period dramas, but that character in particular, oh my God, I was like, I need to make this movie before I die. Like, I have to play this part.
And you did, but please don't die for like 100 years or something. But no, I think it is one of those characters I think you would miss because and from somebody who watches films, I think we've all seen films where we watch it, the credits come up and we go, right, what am I going to have for tea? Mm-hmm. I like it when I see a film, which Fear the Invisible Man is one of those as well, where I'm sitting here thinking I enjoyed getting to know those characters, and I'm still thinking about those characters and what is Adeline up to now, and what is the inspector up to, and I want a buddy series of movies with you and Wayne, just off doing adventures. I think the shared universe that would work. I thought your scenes together were great. Wayne was wonderful.
Yeah, I loved working with Wayne. He was brilliant. And some of my favourite moments on set were where me and him got to do the really heavy dialogue scenes. I mean, for me, it was like, yay, I'm playing against another actor for a while, which was just really nice. But I loved our scenes and where the arc of our scenes took us and how we could build on those. And then all the subtext that's going on between the two of us, where he quite likes Adeline and she quite likes him as the story goes on. So we had a lot of fun playing those moments, and Wayne was just fantastic to work with, and I felt like it just clicked, and I think there was like a good chemistry between the characters.
And I think the chemistry comes off as a viewer. You can tell that's like, these two obviously got on while they were making the film, but their characters like each other. They're not just firing dialogue backwards and forwards. So yeah, the chemistry I think did definitely work, and I really would. Yep, buddy series, just you guys, just that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for me it was important when I was prepping for the film. I wanted to really establish how my character felt about each individual that she comes across, and that the second, if we don't like someone, it's pretty evident the minute you see somebody interact with that person they don't like. So with the Mr. Wicksteed character, I wanted to immediately show I don't like this person. And this is just to give the audience a sense of a background history with that individual. And that's something I wanted to really show throughout the film with each of any small role, even if the actor was only doing one scene with me. It was like, what was my relationship with them? What's her relationship with them been before we meet that character for the first time on screen?
So Wicksteed's the David Heyman character. Is that correct? Yeah. See, I really like David. I'm rewatching all the Trial and Retributions with David Heyman at the minute. So I really like him. So I would struggle, because I'm not an actor, so I probably would struggle anyway. But pretending I don't like him, it's like, you're David Heyman, you're great. I don't want to be mean to you. So how easy is it, or what's the process for you getting into go, right, I don't like you, so I'm just going to... That's good. That's an interesting one.
It was really nice working with him, actually, because one thing he said to me, because I think for a lot of actors, when you're on set, you don't want to ever ask the crew for anything because you don't want to be called a diva. So I never say like, oh, could you actually, you're all moving around in front of me while I'm trying to do the scene. Could you not? And he said, it is all right for you to say, like, guys, can you step to one side, just because, we're trying to envision that we're back in the Victorian era, we're remembering lines, we're trying to time ourselves with the camera movement. And he said, you can ask for certain things so you can deliver the best possible performance you can. So I learned so much from him, and he's a really lovely guy. And yeah, when he's playing Mr. Wicksteed, he's pretty scary. So I was like, this is going to be easy. So yeah, I think, so it was a good experience.
So, Paul, looking back at it, it's a couple of years since you've shot it, just over. What's some of your fondest memories from it? I mean, I don't want to put on the poster quote, "It's not shit," like you said earlier on, but it's really not shit. It's a really, really good film. But I think if you put that on the poster, people would take it the wrong way, going, "All right." And but so, what's your fondest experiences from it all?
I think there was a day. Yeah, there was a day when I was driving up to Gloucester because I commuted each day. I didn't stay up there. And the sun was out and I was thinking about the scene we're about to shoot. And I was just like, do you know what? This is great. I'm on day 17 or whatever on movie. And I met Mike, our producer, in the car park. And it was, like I say, gorgeous. Sun's out in the middle of nowhere. And I think he turned to me and went, "Should we go make some movies?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And we just walked along this nice little country lane and we saw bits of the crew, a few members of the crew arriving. And I knew what we were going to do that day. And I don't know, I just like, do you know what? This is really nice. This is a really good experience. I'm really enjoying, putting this thing putting it together and just, working with Mike and Mhairi and Alex and the team. And I just remember I'm kind of banked that little moment of, it was like I don't know, just something special for some reason. But I just loved, because I love the Victorian period, I just loved being in that world and, being in that house and that, you kind of feel that, I don't know, you're there. It's something about making movies sometimes is like it's the ability to time travel, that you can kind of go, I'm actually in that place. I'm walking around and, I've got a project I'm coming up, which is a Western. And it's like, it's like you're traveling back in time to the Wild West because you're surrounded by all of that thing. It's not like a virtual reality unit or something. You are in that location with those sounds and those smells. So I think filmmaking allows you to do that. So I'll be all forever grateful for Invisible Man for, sort of letting me do that, really. Yeah.
Mhairi's nodding her head off because you've done quite a few films set in the period times. Yeah. So I'm guessing you definitely do love them.
Yeah, I do. I've got quite a few more coming up, actually. I think that's sort of become my typecast is period dramas, because I've got a medieval movie coming up, which is going to be shot in Scotland. And then I've got a Western as well. So, yeah, definitely I seem to be cast a lot in period drama stuff, which is great and fun. And also, like Paul said, it's just the chance to time travel back and see how people lived and what the world was back then. So yeah, it's probably one of my favorite things, but I'm also hoping to do some more contemporary things. I did a contemporary thing last year, which I can't talk about yet, but that was good fun as well. It was nice to sort of do something modern. So I'm looking for more of those at the moment.
I think we liked the day that we had the horse and carriage. We were in Bath streets full of extras because, the street that we used, which is called Bath Street in the city of Bath, is 360. Well, apart from Primark at the end, it's kind of 360 kind of viewing of, and you feel like you're in that period. And to have all those sort of supporting artists walking around, and then you've got this horse and carriage that pulls up, and that was really, it was a really nice day that we did that. And then we had another day out on this country road, which is a really nice, gorgeous, sunny day where we just had the carriage going back up and forth, and that was quite a leisurely day. And that was a really nice memory as well, actually, where we had a splinter unit shooting on our day off, actually, from the main unit, and just getting all these shots of the horse and carriage, and the horses were great. And I don't think the carriage was a particularly comfortable ride. I think Mhairi will have to chime in on that.
It was interesting because it was an actual Victorian carriage. And so when it starts moving, you start sliding off the seat. And I remember all the cameras rolling. We're in Bath. I thought, well, we can't keep redoing this take because, time's money. We had several street scenes to shoot that day, including one with snow, and all the fake snow needed to be put out. So I remember sliding forward going, oh, Paul's going to kill me if I can't keep myself upright. So I had to put my feet on the front of the carriage and hold myself in position because it's so slidey and so bumpy. I actually don't know how women back then actually managed to sit still without bracing themselves.
Well, that was going to be my next question. It's do you think that back then they did the way you did it, or do you think they just developed their ankle muscles so much that they somehow managed to do that thing that Michael Jackson did when he could tilt forward? And you're like, how's that work?
Yeah, I would like to think they didn't have to do it the way I did it, because I looked very ungraceful. When you looked in, I didn't look graceful at all, because I was just sort of like holding myself in. But I honestly don't know how they did it. Even just moving around in a corset, I was in a proper corset for the entire shoot. I was in full head to toe costume that was heavy, 15 layers. I was in real Victorian boots that tied up to my knee. So I couldn't get those off quickly, so I was blistered and bleeding throughout the day. And the corset actually started changing my shape slightly throughout the shoot. I started, it does start changing you. And at lunchtime, because I didn't have enough time to get out of costume to go and eat, because I had to be the first on set and it'd take too long to get me ready, I just had to eat very small amounts of food. So I was ravenous by the end of the shoot.
Ravenous and exhausted. Just like, I'm just going to sleep. And in between yawns, just drop food into my mouth, please. That would work.
Yeah. So it was challenging physically for a lot of reasons. And it's a real eye opener, actually. And
people say life's difficult nowadays. It's like you go wear a corset, 15 layers in the heat, because you mentioned that some of the weather was really hot. You must have been melting.
Oh yeah, I was absolutely roasting all the time. And there was some days where it was really hard, especially if it was like doing lots of running or walking up and down stairs. They were always the hardest thing because of the weight as well of the skirts. So it was like carrying weights literally around your waist. And walking up and down stairs with them, and then everyone would go, "Let's go for another take," and I'd be like, "Oh my god!" Let me just pull myself back up the staircase again.
You've got like Paul and Alex going, "Yeah, cheers, do it again, Barry. Yeah, do it again."
Yeah, in our t-shirts and jeans.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But it's great. I loved it. It's so you mentioned things that you've got coming up. What can you talk about? I'll go to Paul first, just because why not? He's there. Yeah, sure. So what can you talk about that you've got coming up?
Well, we've got this Western that we want to do, so which is really exciting. It's been written by a friend of mine called Jim Griffin, and it's a supernatural Western about a haunted town in 1885. And we're going to be filming it over in southern Spain, which is in the town built for a few dollars more. So we're actually...
Do you need somebody to make tea? I'll come over and do it.
I mean, literally the Yellow Rose Hotel and all that is all still there. And so we're looking to do that. We're just in the process now of casting and trying to get the finance together. And then I've got a Christmas script that I'm going to do after that. So I'm kind of busy, hopefully, for the next couple of years. That'd be really nice to kind of put those two projects together. But I'm looking forward to doing the Christmas one purely because it's contemporary. I mean, this would be the first 3 films that I've done that are all set in like 1890. Like I've spent most of my time in the VFX suite painting out light switches and telegraph poles and stuff like that just shouldn't be there. So it would be nice to actually have, kind of some contemporary action and some modern day, so we don't have to worry about corsets and resetting horse and carriages. It just becomes, walking down the street in 2024 or whatever. But yeah, so I've got a Western and a Christmas movie, so I'm really excited about both.
You've also got a Frankenstein project on your filmography, which is the one I touched upon earlier. That's kind of related to this, but
yeah, so that's probably going to come out later this year. So it's unrelated to Invisible Man. It's the same sort of production companies. But it's kind of like my own dark universe, really, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's in the same world, it's the same tone and feel. So we had to be really careful that I just didn't want to repeat myself. But again, it was written by Jim, who wrote the Western. Really excited about it, really. Kind of we tweaked the story a little bit. It's set 100 years after Frankenstein. So the first opening montage, we kind of zoomed through the 100 years of what's happening since 1790. So it was set in 1890, and it's a family who have come across Frankenstein's diary. So, and it's all about family, really, and how the family falls apart.
So when the trailer for that drops on YouTube, I will be looking to see if some dumb arse is like, "It's got Robert De Niro in it. What's going on?" I will be looking for that comment. So, Mhairi, what can you talk about you've got coming up very soon? I know you've touched upon stuff briefly, but what have you got?
So I also have a Western film coming up that is called Gun Hand, and we're filming over in Spain, in the same location actually as well, but it's a straight drama, which I'm really excited about. The director's new. He's a first-time feature director. He's really talented. Paul's actually producing it.
Nice.
So he's involved. Yeah, we're sort of mixing. We've got like almost the similar teams or same teams involved in both. So it's actually quite nice little couple of films that we're doing all as a family unit. And then I also have a medieval horror film that I'm shooting in Scotland, which I'm really excited about. I've got to learn a lot of new skills for it, sword fighting with a broadsword and archery and things like that. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well. It'll be interesting doing all that action in another period costume as well. So yeah, it's a nice mix.
Well, you are trained in some martial arts anyway, Krav Maga and stuff being one of them. So it's always good when you could use that on screen, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely fun when you get to use that. And it's quite what's really interesting is rehearsing suddenly when you've got all the costumes on and stuff. It's very different. You have to change the way you move quite quickly as well. So that's going to be fun. So that's sort of the next two feature films that I can sort of talk about that I've got coming up.
But well, I'm not going to focus too much on them because everybody should be concentrating on Fear the Invisible Man. Sometimes my brain needs to go into like Fear the Walking Dead because I've been rewatching that recently. So when I'm thinking of the title, it's like, no, go down that road, Fear the Invisible Man. But people need to concentrate on that one. If you like films that are classic based, so yes, they're made now, but feel like some of the original classic movies, Ghost and Mrs. Muir, that sort of thing, the original Invisible Man and whatnot, I would highly recommend checking out the film. And that's not just because I'm speaking to you two who were involved making it. I genuinely had a blast watching it. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much.
So what have you got planned for the rest of your day? Are you going to go out and get some sun? If it's, I could see sun coming out of your coming through your window, Paul. The backdrop hasn't fallen over, Mhairi, so that's good. What have you got planned?
I've got a bit of work to do actually on a couple of projects and a couple of other things, and catch up on a bit of admin really. And yeah, kind of everything's been done now for the Frankenstein film, so I'm kind of all my work's been done on that, so I can focus on a bit more of the other things looking forward. But yeah, kind of chilling out a little bit. I think now it's all done and dusted, and yeah.
Enjoy your release day. Enjoy the film is now out there. So Mhairi, what are you up to today?
Again, like Paul, I've got a little bit of work I need to do for the other productions. It never stops. You sort of finish one and then roll straight into the next, and trying to get that one up on its feet. So yeah, so focusing on that at the moment, and but I'm definitely going to try and get some sun as well. It's nice.
Definitely. Well, I'm going to try and get this online today. So I've got my screens behind me. I've got my editing suite open. Screens off obviously in a minute to try and get that on because it is release day, and I think people should be able to hear more about the film on the day it came out. But thank you to the pair of you and everybody else involved in making the movies. I definitely appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you,
sir.
Take care. Anytime.
Bye.
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 Bye.